it. We got a little bit of coffee going. Oh, that is so good. Alrighty, everybody. Yeah, it's that time. Today we're going to talk about how to make a cell phone stand in Tinkercad, and then we printed it out on the K2 Plus. You can see over here on the K2 Plus cam. It's already done. So yeah, it took about 9 hours of printing, and there's a caveat on why it took so long, 0.2, but we'll get into all the details of that later. But yeah, as you can see, we do have the cell phone holder, and it is doing quite well. So yeah, pretty good. It came out well. Now the question is whether it's going to hold the cell phone or not. We got George on board who says good morning, at least good morning here. It's like 4:55 a.m. here in Korea. We just got back from Hawaii last night. 8-hour plane ride. We had to wait like about 30 minutes for baggage. And then we had to wait like an hour or something to get the free bus to go from Incheon Airport to Camp Humphreys. And then once we got there, we had to wait like another 30 or so minutes to get a taxi to be able to get our tanned tuk-tus back home. So, hi, we got Swedish Forge in. Hey, what's up, brother? Good to see you. So yeah, it was a good vacation. We had a good time. It worked out well, and it was good. We enjoyed it. Ned Venev says, welcome back home. Yes, so glad to be back home. Yeah, it was, vacation's good, but in all honesty, it was good to get back home and sleep in your own bed. And I mean, we're Waikiki, and, we went to a few places. We picked up some awesome coffee, and if we look at the coffee cam, that's the coffee that we end up having. So this is from Green World Coffee. It is actually a coffee farm there on Oahu, and this is a blueberry strudel flavor. So a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of sugar on there. Ooh, it is perfect. I got it dialed in. So we got like 11 bags of coffee. So what we're going to end up doing is 11 bags, 16 ounces in each bag. So yeah, they probably thought I was smuggling drugs or something, but apparently they didn't think it was too bad because they let us through. So Swedish Ford says it's good here. Nice to see you again with 3D printing. Yes. As a matter of fact, it was last night before we got here. Yeah, night before we got back. Yesterday was our first full day back, and of course, you're doing cleanup and laundry, and we had to go shopping. We had to pick up our car that was on the military base because we drove it there, and then so a little puddling around and stuff like that. Now we're back. So yeah, we're going to talk about how to make this cell phone stand in Tinkercad, because yesterday I was like jonesing for doing something, and I was like, I realized I don't have a cell phone holder. So I thought, you know what, let's play around a little bit and we'll see how that goes. So with that, let's just go ahead and go to the desktop, and we'll pull this up here, and it still takes a little bit of time for that to come in. Okay, so here is kind of what I was playing around with different models. This was my first cell phone stand, which isn't too bad. It worked out okay, took some rudimentary measurements, and that was kind of like, well, I want something a little bit more something a little bit more futuristic type. So I kind of went with that, and I was like, I don't know, maybe it's because I thought it was a surfboard. I had some Hawaii stuff going on. So the jury's still out on that. And then I kind of went into playing around with this tool right here, which is the extrude sketch. So with this, and this is kind of a This ended up being kind of a weird thing because what I was going to do was kind of have a watch holder on the back of this and then kind of cut this way. I don't know. I just kind of did that. And then I was like, you know what? Well, maybe I could do something with like a post, you know, something like that. And I didn't figure out how I was going to do the phone. I thought, you know, well, maybe with this I could do, let's see if we can get this out of here. I thought with something like this, that what I could end up doing is go kind of intersect that. And then I could have, that would be the watch. And then we could have like a little offshoot stand or something, you know, with kind of something like this. I'll bring that up and kind of like that. And just kind of bring that forward, and then we're going to tilt it a little bit, something like that. And then that would incorporate, you know, the magnet, you know, mag charger or something like that, and then have a little base on there. I thought about that, and I was like, I don't know. And then the more I played around with the extrude sketch, basically what I ended up doing was kind of taking some rudimentary measurements. So this is 156 by 80. So 80 is the width of my cell phone, and I just kind of did some stuff. But in case you're wondering, let's just go through and we will just kind of do a similar thing. And let's just put this right in the middle. And there we've got our thing. So basically what I ended up doing is making, so you got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 120, or that's 110, 120. Let's just make it like that. And then just kind of guesstimated as far as like, and then the other thing you can find out, this is interesting because if you look and you see the, oh, that's not what I wanted. Seriously, really? Well, we'll just kind of continue on. What you can end up doing is you could click and then click that, and then you could make that the size that you want. And so kind of just kind of go like that. And we get the basic shape of what we want. And then what we can end up doing is going over here, and we can select like this shape here, and we can do some different things. So we could make that rounded, and you know, kind of do, of course that's a little messed up there. Wait a second. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit. There we go. And then we'll go back and we'll just kind of make these like that. We'll do that. And so in other words, you can go through and you can change some of the dynamics. And I do have it set at 1 millimeter down here on the bottom right. If you wanted a little bit more fine-tuned, you could set that to 0.1, but we're just going to do for 1 millimeter. So we can go through, we could do that, and like we could select this line, see how that makes that look nice and rounded. And what I could do is I think I could put another one here. Yeah, let's put another one there. That's not going to work, is it? No. We're gonna have to go back and we'll add another one. So anyway, there's the basic shape that we end up having there. So if we finish the shape, there it is in all its glory. And then what we could end up doing is extruding this up, and we'll put this at 80 because that's the width of the phone. And so now that we've got this, what we could end up doing is we could add on another little piece here to kind of catch the phone. So we'll go back, because I haven't had enough coffee yet, and we could do something like this. So we'll take this, we'll go ahead and we'll make that 12, and we'll make this, let's just make that 8. And we'll come over, we'll make that 5. And that, and something kind of like that. And then what we could end up doing is we could go ahead and select and do some some round things. You could play around with that, you know, kind of change some of the look of that. Now again, it's only on what is that line? That's 6. Let's make that 10. And then we can just kind of adjust this a little bit. Try to make it look a little bit nicer. Something like that. And so we've got enough room. What is that? That's 12. We could just move this over a little bit. Like that. And so that way at 10, yeah, that's probably good. So you do something like that. And so now we have our little piece there, and we can just extrude this up. And then we have showing that those are 2 different pieces. And then what we can end up doing is just selecting both of those. I'll go up to the top here, we'll hit Union Group or Control G. And boom, there is the basis for our cell phone holder. So we got something like that. The other thing we could end up, let's go ahead and hit D so it's on the work plane. And yeah, not too bad. The other thing you could end up doing is getting the dimensions of your charger. So like a mag back charger, kind of like what you end up seeing here. This is one for an Apple Watch. But you have mag back with a cable charger, and you could get the dimensions, and I think one of them was like on this one here was 56 if I'm not mistaken. What is that? Yeah, 56. So I made it 56.1 to get a little bit of wiggle room. And so basically we'll take this here, we'll click this onto the surface, so now this area will be our work plane. And so now we're going to take our cylinder, we'll put that right there, and we'll hold shift, click, and then we'll go 56.1, boom, and we want that, it's 5 millimeters thick, so we'll do 5.1, and then what we could end up doing is selecting both of those. We'll go up here to this tool, and we can set this in the center. And then now, so now that that's all squared away, this is going to be where our mag back holder is going to be. And one thing I forgot, we'll click this. No, we don't want that. We want our sides to be 48 segments, so that way it's perfectly round. And now what we'll do is we'll see this little button here, and now we'll go back down, and this is where we go to 0.1 in that bottom right. So now we want it, because that's hidden, and just like that. So we want a little bit, well, that's going to be flush, so we need to come out just one more. There we go. So that is going to be the hole for our charger. We could end up kind of just put it up. I think the measurement was, I don't know, I did a little measurement on the phone on where mine was at from the thing, and I think it was like 56 or something would be it. So the distance between you know, here and here, you'd have to, you know, put a little thing on there. Let's say we could do like that. And we could make that 56, and then we could take that and do that. We'll get rid of our square. There's probably other ways to do this. And then we'll go back. We'll line this. Click on that. And we should be good to go. So now what we'll end up doing is we'll click our disc here that is 0.1 millimeter just above the surface of the holder. And we'll go over here to where it says change to a hole, or hit the H key. So if I hit H, let's go back to this. If I hit H, it'll automatically make it a hole. So, and then we can select both of these and we do a union group. And what that'll end up doing is giving us our hole. So now the other thing that if you notice on the charger, you have the charger part and then the cable. And so what we can end up doing, we got to have enough room for the cable to come in. So go ahead and we'll get our little box, our hole box. And I think this was like 8, if I'm not mistaken. You'd have to take a look. Let's just make it 8. And then, I don't know what it was. I think it was 16, I think it was. Something like that. And let's make it 18. And we'll get that there. And then what we can end up doing is grab this arrow. We push this through the model so that way it comes out the back. And that's where our little hole is going to be. And we'll hit select and click. We'll do union group. And boom, there's the hole. So we can go ahead and we could run our cable through with the little USB-C connector through the back there. So that's how you can end up doing that. The other thing you could end up doing is kind of like what I did on this one, is kind of make a little bit of a holder for the watch. And this is, what am I doing? Oh, that's way down there. Oops. Oh, what am I doing? Okay, let's just, there. So this is the holder, and what I ended up doing is doing a disc, and then I just did like a partial, I did a lot of cutting and whatever, and then put some holes on there so that this is the hole for the disc. No, I don't want that. I want that one there. And so that would hold the cable charger for the iPhone watch. And then what I can end up doing is taking that. I also did this little piece here. And so that way, that would accommodate the cable that comes off of that. And you could use a different, you don't have to use a disc or anything, but what I could end up doing is to bring this up and turn this around, or actually, let's turn it not that way. That's what I want to do. Change it like that. And then I could do something to attach that. I don't know why I got that. So I could take something like this here. And let's take this. And we could make this a little bit smaller. Make that 20, make that 20, and I'll make that 20, so there, something like that, and let's go ahead and center that, so we'll click that, boom, center, and then we could take our little thing here for a watch, and we could kind of center that like that. And something like that. Let's ungroup this. Well, let's make sure that this is centered. So that's selected, hit select, click the stand, and yep, now we're centered. And now, let's ungroup that. And we'll ungroup that again. And now, what we could end up is something like this. So that way we can grab this piece here and that cylinder, we could join those two together, and then we could take our two holes and that one piece there, we could combine those all together, and we could do something like that. Well, actually, oops, I don't want to do that. Let's grab that. And so we got our hole there. This, we could end up kind of sinking this all the way through. We could do something a little, something like that, because I think that's the dimension of our, what am I doing? I'm just so lost here. This and that, and we will do these, so that's centered on that, so everything should be centered to go. And then if we click our hole and our stand, we'll join those together. Now we have a hole that we can thread in the cable and the connector for, and I would have to check on that, but that should be the right size. So that way we could have the cabling go to this, we could have the cabling go there, but now we've got this problem here. What are we going to do? Well, there's an easy way to fix this. And so we're going to take this hole shape, the cylinder, we'll click that, and we'll put it on the surface. So notice how on the ground there, it'll have the cylinder up and down. But if I put this on a surface, that's where that cylinder will be placed. In other words, that'll indicate this is the work plane right here. So now what I can end up doing is just kind of moving this here, just some rudimentary moving around, and since it's on that surface, now we can select, we have our hole selected, we hold our shift key down, we select the orange piece, we'll do Control G, and what that'll end up doing is creating that hole, so that way we have a flat surface there. And if I was really concerned, usually you'll see this here. It's not a problem. It doesn't have any issues when slicing, but if it really bothers you, what you could always do is just kind of go down to your snap grid, the 0.1 millimeter, and then we'll just do one click that way, and we're good to go. Or if, you know, it should be good. So then you have room for your Apple Watch, and if we select both of these like that, and we'll do Control G, and there is our iPhone cell phone holder with the iWatch. You know, you could probably do something on this to where, let's see, let's put a circle here, and we'll add steps so it looks really cool, and we could do that. And we could do that, so that way we could clean up basically that right there and try to make it like so. I don't know, something like that. Of course, I could do the dimensions because it was 20. Yes, it was 20. And then we'll just align this up. And we should be good to go on that. And then that way it looks a little bit better. I got a little bit of a indentation on the bottom, but that's 20. So, but you get what I'm saying. We could end up kind of taking this. There we go. So it looks nice and clean. We could do something like that. We'll just join all that together, and then we got our little dip there. And again, what we can do is go through with our little circle, and we could just move that around. And we shift and select, do group. That'll take that little bump out of there, and we should be good to go. Ooh, it did both of those. That's not what I wanted. But I don't know why that does that, or why it did that. There we go. Okay. And then we'll just select both of those, group, and there is our cell phone holder. So yeah, as long as you get the dimensions of your phone and things like that, what you can end up with is coming out with a pretty decent, actually I think I like that better than the one I just printed. The other thing we could end up doing is you could go through on this backside here and you could route a hole or a track for that cable. So in other words, we could do something like, I don't know, we'll make this 5 millimeters, and you could do something like that. Now I'm just kind of eyeballing stuff, and then we could go through, and probably a better way to do that would be a hole or a square instead of, yeah, let's just do a square. And this would be a lot better. So you do that, and we'll just make this, I think it was 5, and then we could inset that like so, and then we could of course make that go, you know, however we wanted. And let's make that like that. And we could go in, let's go back to 1 millimeter. And I'll just push that in 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that should be good enough. And then you could take, let's copy that. And we'll get another one. But we'll take this. And let's see if we can select that group, and we should be able to get our little track. Maybe, dun dun dun, there we go. Oh. Didn't do it, didn't do it. There we go. Now shift to select, we'll group. That'll give us our track for there. This we could end up, I should have made a copy. It's easier just to do this. We'll make that 5. And then like so, and we'll drop this down. We'll make that like that. I'll drag this out until we can have our channel. And this needs to go a little bit over. So basically like that. And then we'll hit shift, click on the model. We'll group that together. And so now we can have a little, it's a little jacked up there, but basically you can end up putting a track in there if I spend more time doing that. And we got, yeah, so you could route the cable through there. You could even, you know, put a cover on there, or maybe do kind of like a sliding thing. I don't know, like a cover in there. That would be something that I just thought of, but yeah, that's basically how you can end up making your own cell phone holder. So yeah, that actually, out of these two, which one looks better? I mean, the blue or the red? I guess that's the question. Because I did the red last night, and I did a little hole there, so that way I wouldn't have to put a support in there. Just run the cable and it comes out the back. Just a little hole there. So, a little bit different. But I don't know, I'm kind of digging the blue one now. That's not bad either. So, I don't know. Red or blue? Red or blue? That would be the question. I don't know. I'm starting to like the blue now. So yeah. I think I'm liking the blue better than the red. And I just finished printing out the red. So yeah. So what we're gonna end up doing is we'll go ahead and we'll pull that off of the printer. George says, with the weight of his phone, I would have to go with red. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, that could work. And then if you want, depending on the strength, blue or red, you could make the blue one really strong by increasing the wall size. And so I think that's what we'll end up doing. We'll take a look at the model itself on the slicing program on Creality Print. And so this is, you know what, I'm liking the blue one better. But basically what we can end up doing is we just kind of threw this in here, and if we take a look at, we got 0.2 millimeters for the layer height, which is fine, not bad. Everything else is pretty much stock. If we go down here, I did 3 wall loops. So if you wanted something really strong, you could increase. I think 3 is good enough. You could probably do 2, but I do 3. I kind of overdo it. And then for the infill density, I did 4%, and I did gyroid. And so if we preview this, let's see, what else did I end up? Oh, I did something else on this. All of that stock. For the supports, I did tree, auto default, 30 on the build plate, and multi-filament. We didn't do anything for this one here because I wanted to do the fuzzy skin stuff, and that's why it took so long. Now this doesn't have fuzzy skin, and so what I want to do is let's take a look at the preview on this. And what we can see is that this would take 9 hours and (9 hours and 19 minutes). But if I did that, let's slice this again. I think it messed up. So 9 hours and 19 minutes. And if we look at, and it's $3.11. So if we go through and we look at the infill on that, it's not too bad. I mean, 3 walls, you'd be good to go. I think that's more than enough for a cell phone holder, but you could go through and you could change that. But with the fuzzy skin, if I said none, now we slice the plate, because with the fuzzy skin, it was 9 hours and something minutes. And without it, I think it was 5 something. No, still 9 hours. That is really odd. So I don't know why. When it says none, now this is taking 9 hours. Because when I did it before, maybe there was a glitch in the matrix. But you can see it turned out all right. And the area that I was worried about was this area here, because all of that is support. So we'll see how that happens, but we got a little view there. And what I can end up doing is we'll pull this off the machine and we'll take a look at it live. So let me go get that. I'll be right back. Dun, 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 dun. Pop this out there real quick. And the fuzzy skin generator came out pretty nice. So if you can see that, and this is Polymaker PLA. You got a little bit of, you can see that, a little bit of lines on there, but they'd have to try some different stuff. But let us, we don't need that, so let's make this smaller. And our K2 Plus cam, and now, oh, the other thing I ended up doing on that was the supports. We can go back and we can take a look at that, because I wanted to go over some of the other details on the supports. So on the support tab, what I did is the top G distance 0.26, and everything else was stock. So we'll see how well these come off. Let us see. But look at the, it looks like that this overhang came out nice. But we will see. Some nice supports. Those came off nicely. Ooh, that came out good. Oh, that's nice. Wow, look at the edge on that underside. That fuzzy skin is awesome. That, look at how well that came out. That fuzzy skin is really good. I've got a little bit of drooping on there. You can see it right there, how it kind of droops a little bit. But for the most part, you wouldn't notice that as it sits. So, yeah. Let's see. George says he made a wall mount so he wouldn't have to doom scroll when you go to sleep. Doom scrolling, I know. Looks good. Yeah, I think it turned out well. I think it turned out well. So, let's just do a little... Wow, look at the underside of that. That turned out really nice. That is sharp. Oh, and it's that lip there. It's a little bit too small. because of my phone case.
Sorry, I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. I don't understand either. I mean, I can fit it in there a little bit. So, oh, that's right. I forgot the dimensions of the cell phone, but then I didn't take into account the dimension of the cell phone case. Alrighty. Well, there we have it. The other thing we could end up doing is, since I've got the cable for the watch charger, we'll see if my dimensions were good on this. So we got that little hole in the back, and dun dun dun, and boom. Ooh, that is a tight fit. Ooh, but it works. Look at that. And then we have the hole in the bottom, so we can run our cable through that hole, and there it is. So yeah, that worked out good. Nice. It's a nice little thing that we got there. So the only other adjustment would be pushing this out a little bit more for the shelf, but overall it looks pretty good. And with the fuzzy skin, we got some ringing. See how it's got the lines in there? So I don't know. I've been on a fuzzy, but on that side it looks, you got a little bit of ringing there. But the fuzzy skin is like 0. Where is it? Fuzzy skin type is classic. It's on contour. And it's got some different things for the fuzzy skin generator mode. You got some different, you got displacement, extrusion, combined, and what it talks about, it says on the fuzzy skin generator, works only with Arachne. So if we go back up, and it was on Arachne, so we're good on that. Displacement mode, classic mode, where the pattern is forward by shifting the nozzle sideways from the original path. Extrusion, the mode is when the pattern formed by the amount of extruded plastic. This is the fast and straight algorithm without unnecessary nozzle shake that gives a smooth pattern, but it is more useful for forming loose walls in entire they array, whatever that is. Combined joints. Appearance of the walls is similar to displacement mode, but leaves no pores between the perimeters. Oops. And it says, attention, the extrusion and combined modes works only with the fuzzy skin thickness parameter, not more than the thickness of the printed loop. At the same time, the width of the extrusion for a particular layer should also not be below a certain level, usually equal 15 to 25% of the layer height. Therefore, the maximum fuzzy skin thickness with a perimeter width of 0.4 and a layer height of 0.2 will be 0.4, 0.2 times 0.25 plus or minus 0.35 millimeter. If you enter a higher parameter than this, the airflow placement spacing will be displayed. The model will not be sliced. Okay, interesting, interesting. So yeah, hey, we got Terry on board. Terry says good morning. Yeah, good vacation it was. And as soon as I got back, made a cell phone holder. First little one. Of course, I think we might have to make another one. But yeah, turned out vacation was good. It was good. So not bad at all. And that was just, boom, a little tight fit there that we got. So that's for the watch. And then that's for the phone. And then we found out that the this little lip here isn't extruded out long enough because I didn't take into account the case, or I didn't measure. I didn't measure twice and slice once. I measured once and sliced and printed, and yeah, 9 hours later. So, but yeah, that is good. Good to know. So, I think it turned out well. Pretty good for a first time. And yeah. So we'll have to go back to our Tinkercad and play around with that. Nope, that's not what I want. And so, just gotta dig a little bit. There it is. So we did the red. That is the one I ended up doing. But in all honesty, I think I'm digging this one, the blue one, more. But the problem that we had was this right here wasn't long enough. So let's just kind of get a little, put a little square in there. I don't know, there's probably another way to do this, but we can just get a rudimentary measurement, which is 10, so probably to make that what we want, that distance there would probably have to be 14 or 15. So that way it will accommodate, let's make it 15 to accommodate a cell phone in a case. So with our blue one here, we could end up doing, let's move this so it's a little bit, I think we're lined up. Are we? Yep, we're lined up, okay. We're good. So with this case, what I'd have to do, let's copy this. We'll put that there, we'll put that over there. We'll take this. I have to reverse engineer, and let's get rid of our tracks a little bit. And that. And what we can do, just join those two together because those are not going to change. We can actually group that together, so I can move that out of the way. But we need to change that distance. So now, and we're not able to edit the sketch with all the other stuff that we put on here. So in other words, there's not like a timeline on Tinkercad. Sometimes on other CAD programs, you can go back to a specific edit in your timeline to just adjust that one part. So we won't have to redo everything like what we end up seeing here. So again, with this, and I think, yeah. So now we should be able to adjust this and edit the sketch. And so we want this, let's click this, and let's make that 16. And we can adjust this. Let's go to 0.1 millimeters so we can do that. We can end up doing that. We can end up doing that and that. So we're just kind of eyeballing this a little bit. Does that look good? I think that looks okay. Maybe drag that down a little bit. And so we should have enough room in between here because that's 13.6, so it's probably, let's make it 15. And 15.25, okay. And we'll just kind of shift everything out a little bit. And we're just gonna kind of eyeball this a little bit. Give that a little bit more beef down there. Let's move this. I think it's close enough for government work, maybe. So there we've got 15.25, so that should be enough. That should be about 1 millimeter. And let's just make it a little bit more. I think we should be good. Hey, we got John popped in, said hello. Welcome back from Hawaii. Hello, yes, thank you. I don't know, this piece here just seems odd. It just seems a little odd. Maybe we can drag that down. You just play with the, I think that's good enough. That'll be good enough. Okay. So at least we know we've got the distance here is like 16.28, so that should accommodate what we need. But let's just add a little bit more. And what is the distance of that? That's 6.9. Let's just make that 7. We should be good to go. And I want that angled just a tad more. And we should be good. So there, we'll go up here to top right, hit finish sketch, and boom, there we are. And of course we want our quality to be awesome. And so now we can go back. We'll hold shift, click the model. We'll do Command G to sync all that together. And then we could grab that, hit shift, that, and this. We'll do Control G. I'll be able to get that. And then we could bring this back over here. And or, you know, you could just select both of these. But the problem is now this selects everything here. I'm not sure why that does that. So we'll just click on the orange. We'll hold shift down, click on the blue, and we'll line this up like so. And we'll union group all those together. And there it is. So that should work out. So we'd have, and this size here is for the mag back, wired battery charger. I got the dimensions off the internet. So that would look good. So we could have our cable going through there, and honestly, I don't know if we'd want, I don't know. There's something here. I don't know. It's almost like I'd want to have like a cable channel. And you know what we could end up doing? we could do this. Watch this. And we could zoom in here. And because of the cable track that we want to put on this thing to go out the back, and the cable is about, forget the dimensions on that. So we do probably about 4, so we'll do 5. What we could do is go over to our extrusion sketch, and what we could end up doing, come on, is now we could go like this. And we could do that. We could set that to 5. Well, we can adjust some things. 1, 2, 3, 4. How am I going to do this? So I do the, you know what? Let's just screw this. So I need the cable track. Let's try to put this on 1 millimeter, and we'll see what we can do. I think we can do that. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That should be that one there. It should be good. And then we'll take that up to here. And then like this. Like that, and like that. And that will be our cable track. So we'll go ahead and finish the sketch. And now that is 10, we'll make that 5. And how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, what is that? So 7. Okay, that'll work. 7's good for cable track. And then let's go ahead and we'll take off this. We'll rotate that like that. We can move this. Now let's grab this. Hit D to put it on the face. Put D to put that on the face, but we're going to raise this up. Like so. And we'll right click this over like that. And that could be our track for our cables. You know what I could do is I could just take this could do that. And so we got a big cable tray there. And we can make that into a hole. And I think that should be good enough. So that'll be about 5 millimeters. And then that way we can have our cables going through. We could route that. and then to come out the back there, and it'd be good to go. Let's see what else we got going on. Let's try something else. Do a little hole action here. That's not what I want. This is what I want. That way we can do a little bit of a, I'll take that, make sure it's in the center, and that way we could kind of have like a little rounded edge there a little bit. We could end up doing something like that. We'll realign this. This looks like that. We'll group. And that way, we'll have something that won't have as many sharp edges, and it'll just, I don't know, looks a little bit cooler, I think. So that should be good. The only thing would be is to get a mag back charger and be able to do that. So, and this is how tall? 134. Which is about that right there. So yeah, good work out. Good work out. That could be our next cell phone holder. I don't know. So I could do two versions of this, into where we could just have the cell phone holder itself. Let's just go ahead. We'll get rid of that. I'll just keep ungrouping. And so we could have something that just has the cell phone holder by itself. So we could do two versions without charger, and then without that, and of course we would need that or that. So we could do two versions, and of course I'd have to play around with this, make one up to make sure that it works with the mag back and the cell phone, Apple 13 Pro Max or whatever, and make sure that that battery charger connection magnetic mag back thing is in the right position. So it would have to do some more testing, but I'm liking this right here. That's not bad looking at all. Throw the watch on the back. That could be good to go. So yeah, I think I'm liking this right here. Not bad. Not bad at all. Of course, it would be nice to have something to, have something to, for this track, have something cover that up. That should be interesting. You have the two cables going through there, which should be good. Again, the distance on that is 7, so both the cables would be able to fit through there. But something to, on this piece here, on this plane, have something to cover that up. I don't know, that would be interesting. So I'll have to play around with that. So, yeah, there it is. Enjoying the little cell phone holder that we ended up making. And you know what I could do? Because of the tolerance on this part right here is just too short. It's like 1 millimeter too short for the cell phone case that I have. Because it's like that, if you can see that. I could put this in hot water, and because this is PLA, I could kind of pull this out a little bit and yeah, use it that way, and it'd be good to go. Of course, if I just had my cell phone, and see how that, I got more than enough space. Crazy. Oh, and I just, oh no, I broke a bunch of miniatures. Good Lord, no. No. Oh no. Horribleness. Oh no. Oh no, 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 no. That is horrible. Oh, we decimated some guys. That is not good. So I had this paint thing, and it had a bunch of miniatures on it. This guy came away unscathed. But oh well. And this guy, well, he's got one broken antenna. Just snap that one off. Good thing these are one-offs. This guy, did he survive? Yep, that guy survived. The sword guy didn't survive. So that guy ended up having a sword, and that popped off, so that is somewhere. And then this guy got decapitated. Oh no. But is he fixable? Oh yeah. But he was just kind of a little test piece for a color scheme for my Necrons, so that's not bad. I'll just have to find the sword on the other one and glue those back. So I get for playing around, which leaves something to be said for this, because this is really slidey. So we would need some type of rubber to get some traction on that, so that way it doesn't slide around so much. So we got a little bit of grip on there. But other than that, it turned out good. And the fuzzy skin worked out well, as you can see. The overhang drooped a little bit. And that back side right in there. You can see that drooping right in there, which I was surprised that it came out that well. You can see it from, see that little droop there? Not bad. But it's not really noticeable. So, okay. Don't you love live streaming? So that's what we ended up doing. How to make a cell phone stand in Tinkercad. We went over that. Well, first of all, I came back from Hawaii, so we're back from that, trying to get our sleep schedule back to normal. Unfortunately, it's like a 19-hour difference. And so, yeah, we're tired towards the end of the day here in Korea. But then I woke up at like last night, or the night before, I woke up at like 11 or no, 12 something, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. It was just, my sleep is all over the place. So, yeah, unfortunate. Yeah, then we did the Tinkercad thing. That extrude sketch tool is coming out pretty nice on Tinkercad, because again, you can draw and you can make some pretty precise measurements. I was pretty surprised, because otherwise going through and trying to make a cell phone holder by doing shapes and adding those shapes together would be painful instead of using that extruder tool. So yeah, like if we go back to this, I know I'm belaboring the point, but if I wanted to do something like this here, just a simple thing like that, what I'd have to end up doing is getting a square, and we'll make that about that. Make that 10. Oops. 10, and then we would do another one, and we make that about 180-ish, and then we could do something about like that. Something kind of like that. And that's a little bit tall, but you kind of get what I'm saying. And then I'd have to come up with another part. So I would have to do like this, draw that out, like that, like that, and then we'd have to do the little shelf action thing, so we could just do another one, and we could set it at 90 degrees, but you're not going to get, going through, and then, I mean, it's just boxy, it would just look weird. And it wouldn't look as polished as what we did with the extrude sketch tool. I mean, yeah, it would come out okay, but yeah, getting, like, even on the extrude tool on this, we could go through and we could make like a rounded edge, or just have this edge come straight down. Ooh, that's an idea. Ooh, y'all gave me a good idea. Thank you. So, if we ungroup that, we do this, we go to Edit Sketch, and what we could end up doing is clicking that, and we could take this down to right there. And we could do like that. Ooh, I think I like that better. So then we could take those two things together. And now we've got a little bit more. Yeah, I think I like that. I like that a lot better. So yeah, just so many things. So many. It never ends. It never ends. Okay. So we got some good ideas. But that'll be pretty good. Interesting. And then we could also, do some holes. That would be an interesting little thing there. Let's see if we can. We can do a cam. Now I'm just kind of screwing around. That won't be the K2 cam, but let's see what we can do with this. So we could do something like this. And I don't know, you could put some holes in this to make it look kind of cool, I guess, maybe. Something a little futuristic, say, ooh, we could do our sketch tool. Can we do the sketch tool on there? Yes, we can. So let's say, let's make this 1 millimeter. And I should have lined this up, but oh well. I'll just kind of eyeball it. I'll just do this. like that. Like that, and then like that, but then let's go ahead and take this, let's just go ahead and we'll do it like this. And there's our sketch tool. Oh, so you can do it like that. So now, check this out. What we'll end up doing, we'll take this piece, we'll copy this, and we'll switch that, nope, that's not what we want to do. Take that, copy that, switch that, and then we can move this over. We could select both of those. We could make that a whole. And I need to make that our edge there. We'll go ahead and do that. We could end up grabbing and doing the something like that. And I don't know. No, I don't want to do that. So you put some kind of cool hole or design in there. I don't know. I don't like that. Okay, never mind. Never mind. But I think that'll. I think this is good. I like this. I like that, what we end up having there. So anyway, yeah, a lot of cool stuff going on. Some good ideas on Tinkercad. Interesting, interesting. For a little cell phone holder, need to have some little rubber stops on there to give it some traction to be able to hold it. I've been putting off printing TPU, but this might be a case of where I could put in little things of TPU on there, which is interesting because talking about 3D printers, let's get into that. 3D printers I've got the Creality K2 Plus, which is nice. But I'm looking at a second printer. And so with that, the second printer, I was thinking about the Prusa Core 1L because the index system is coming out. The problem is the index system is only available right now for the Core 1, and they're having problems. That was having to be pushed back a little bit, and so I dig Prusa in that they have the open source thing. They're concerned about security. You're going to pay more for that, obviously, for a Prusa than you would a Bamboo. Bamboo has locked down their system. Now Bamboo is also in a lot of trouble for, what was it, the open source thing. Because somebody on Orca Slicer did a thing that allowed you to use Orca Slicer with Bamboo, so you didn't have to use their authentication bullshit thing going on. And yeah, that was like, so I guess there's going to be a court case and all this going on because Bamboo ended up saying, hey, we're going to sue this guy. And it's like, but according to the open source rules, you really can't do that, supposedly. So there's a whole big thing on that. And then, so this whole thing with the 3D printers, there's that going on, and then your choice of a multi-material printer, or kind of like with a multi-tool head printer, you had Flash Forge, what is it, Creator Pro, which has the 4 spools, and then you have the Snapmaker U1. Well, the Snapmaker U1 is looking pretty good. I don't know why it didn't get more fanfare, because honestly, it looks really, really good. And some of you, there's some people that watch my channel, the few people, somebody got the Snapmaker U1 and I can't remember. So if you're on here, let me know how it goes. But That looks good, but then FlashForge closed down their ecosystem, and they're putting like in their slicer, like, I don't know, some type of advertisements or bullshit or whatever, and it's just like there's a big uproar about that. So, you know, um, I don't think, I get that companies need to make money, but if you buy something and then it ends up that you have that thing and then they do a firmware upgrade and it changes, and now you're getting advertisements and things that you didn't want to begin with. I don't know. It's just not. It's just not a thing. Adjust some colors here. I'm wearing red. It's probably not a real good color to wear. So the saturation, I got to change stuff. Temperature, I don't know. I think that'll work. So anyway, yeah, the whole thing with FlashForge closing down their ecosystem and changing it, and apparently it's got bugs and glitches and things like that, and there's ads or whatever, which begs the question. I mean, if you buy something, you should have the right to be able to use it as you bought it. It's kind of disingenuous if you come and you buy something because it could do certain things, and then they do a firmware upgrade, and now they add things that you don't like, or they add some permissions or things that you have to have from them, or they add advertising and stuff like that. I think you should have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want that. And with the automatic firmware upgrades and all that, and many companies now are not allowing you to go back to previous firmware editions, you know, is the thing that you bought really yours? You know, Louis Grossman, I think is his name, and of course Grant from 3D Musketeers, and a number of other people are jumping in on this. So FlashForge is like being poo-pooed by everybody, along with Bamboo, and going against the open source rules, because they took open source stuff, which is supposed to be for the entire community, and then they kind of hogged it, and then they changed it, and then they're saying, well, this is ours, and if you make changes to it, we're going to sue you. So yeah, it just doesn't seem, and again, there's going to be a lawsuit, but when it comes to the lawsuit, it's not about right or wrong. It's about how much money you have and who has the deeper pockets. We got Piled 3D here. Yes, yes. He pops in and says hello. He says, are you printing the phone stand now? No, actually, we already printed it. And we did a little bit of fuzzy skin on there. And like we ended up, the dimensions on the cable and everything worked out well. And we'll just kind of go through. This is just for Pile 3D. And Ferritus. Ferritus popped in. Hey, how was it going, sir? Good, good. So, did some fuzzy skin. So it took about 9 hours. But with the dimensions and all this thing, this is the charger for the Apple Watch. And let me see if I can get this in here just perfect. And boom, be able to set like that. We got a little tiny space there, so that way the watch can go on. And then we've got the cord in the back. And then this is for a mag back. These are the dimensions I found online. So I'm going to order one of those and see how that goes. So, and yeah, so it turned out pretty good. The only problem that we had with this was this little shelf here. This space between here isn't long enough to accommodate my phone case. So that's the only problem. If I take the, and again, I'll dunk this in hot water, but you know, that's whatever. But yeah, I was pretty surprised on that. And then we did some stuff on Tinkercad, and I actually think I've got another version that I think would be better, or maybe I'll just do both. And then so I'll do one like this, you know, with the mag back. I got to order the mag back thing to make sure that that fits, and if that works, then I'll do this. I had to make an adjustment to this. And then so we can have the mag back and the Apple Watch charger, so that way you could print this out. And then we'll do one again like this that doesn't have a charger, that's just, and without this. So, and then of course we did some adjustments in Tinkercad to do the other thing. But yeah, Bound says nice. Ferrith says, by the way, is the DJI mini mic you have? Yeah, this is the DJI. This is the older one, and so it works out pretty good. I think I've got the newer one, but do I? But it seems to work out pretty good. I think this is the mini one, and I'm kind of holding this in reserve, so it's a little bit different. So I've got that one there, and where's the other piece? Dun, dun, dun. Oh yeah, here it is. And so this is the mini, which we'll see. And this is the tiny DJI. So we'll see. I'm going to try this one of these days, and it should do the same thing. And it's a little bit smaller. So, oh yeah, he said this is the one that he has. So yeah, we'll try this out eventually one of these days. But I've just gotten lazy. So. But I got a good deal on this. I think it was refurbished or whatever, return or something like that, and I got a good deal on it. So, yeah, it's a little bit smaller, probably work. We'll see how that goes. But that's cool. Yeah, you have to let me know how that works out. So, yeah, Bertha says that's the one he has. So, yeah, tell me what you think about that, and yeah, we'll see how that goes. So, anyway, yeah, that's what we got going on. But the court cases with Bamboo's going, people are going to take Bamboo to court for, you know, the open source thing, FlashForge. What they ended up doing is kind of locking down and putting advertisements and stuff, and people reported a bunch of problems with the new thing that they're doing. I don't understand why everybody needs to try to make their own slicer. Honestly, I think Orca should just be the slicer. Of course, Bamboo's never going to do that. They're going to do their own thing. But I think Orca should just be the slicing company. And then 3D printer companies just pay Orca, say, hey, throw in some of our graphics, this and this, and kind of like a open source thing or whatever, I don't know, instead of having to do an R&D for each company and their own slicer and version of, you know, whatever. I don't know. It just seems like Orca does a really good job. So we'll see. And then, but then talking about SnapMaker and Prusa, we were talking about that earlier. They have this new Spectrum, what is it, filament coloring thing. So you can have the basic colors, but then they can do different shades of colors. If you looked into full spectrum, holy crap, that looks kind of amazing. But so that's a new thing that's coming up. So instead of, isn't it interesting, you had people that had like 16 different colors and, you know, filament being fed into their machine to print 16 different colors. Now you can have like the basic colors, kind of like a printer, you know, an inkjet printer. And, you know, your magenta, your whatever those colors are. And then you can come up with any amount of colors that you want. Well, that's what the full spectrum ends up doing. And Prusa is working on that as well. I think they're working with that. And I think SnapMaker is working with full spectrum or whatever it is. That is going to, I think that's going to be the next thing. So having, you know, 16 different colors of filament, I think that's going to be a thing of the past when this full spectrum and it takes and can do different shades of your filament. It looks pretty interesting. So I think what's going to end up happening is just like with inkjet printers, you've got, you know, the 5 basic colors, you know, plus black and white or whatever the 4 colors are. It's 5. Because you got, what is it, like blue, magenta, whatever, and then black. I got a printer right there. I'm not going to open it up. Maybe? No. Screw it. But you get what I'm saying. And then with that, you can make whatever colors you want. Well, that's what the full spectrum ends up doing. So I think Veritha says cyan, magenta, yellow, and gay, whatever that is. Yeah. Piled 3D says most of the time I only have orange, blue, black, and white. That's cool, yeah. But with this full spectrum thing, I think that is going to, and if you had 5 spools, so I think that's where we're going to head next. Some company is going to say, okay, and especially like with Index, you'll be able to have multiple tool heads to take full advantage of the CMYK, whatever, black. Yeah, K is black. Cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You'll be able to get all the colors that you want, but that'll require 5 heads. So I think with Snapmaker, they've got 4, if I'm not mistaken. But if they could do 5, and other companies come into this and have at least 5 tool heads, then you could have make whatever colors that you want using that full spectrum technology, which would be pretty amazing. You know, it's not HueForge in the thickness of the layers of the colors that you're printing. It's not that light is being transmitted through the object itself to get the different hues of colors or different tones or shades or of colors. It's the mixing. It's just kind of crazy. So we'll see how it goes. Piled 3D says I'm in no rush waiting to see what printer comes out next. I know, yeah. I've got plenty of black parts to design until then. Yeah, that's true. As long as I can crank some stuff out on Tinkercad. Oh, I tried doing like, what was it, FreeCAD? Oh, good Lord, that learning curve is huge. And I mean, Tinkercad, I knocked out that, I can knock out a cell phone holder in like no time on Tinkercad. FreeCAD, good Lord. But then I do like that you would be able to fillet everything, whereas on Tinkercad you just get some weird things. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. So, yeah, thinking about the Prusa Core 1L and getting that is expensive, but I don't know. Piled says FreeCAD is rough. Yes, Fusion is much easier, made by the same company as Tinkercad, so it might find it more intuitive. Really? Do I have? I got FreeCAD. Fusion. I don't know. Let me look. Do I have applications? Fusion. ABCD, FreeCAD. No, I don't have Fusion. Veritha says, just jump to Fusion. I know. Yeah, I probably should. Just that learning curve sucks. I just don't. Yeah, I don't think I have Fusion. Is it 360? No. Piled 3D says you'd love Piled CAD. I've added so much recently. I'll have to check that out. Mesh Mixer. Fusion 360. Free to use for hobbyists. Wink. Let me check my folders. Hold on. Photo, blah, 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 blah. I don't think I have Fusion 360. Let's see if we can pull that up. Fusion 360. Autodesk Fusion 360. switch, not that. I'm pulling this up to see terms of use, blah. Yeah, we'll do that. This is like online Fusion 360 for personal use. So it says for personal non-commercial projects limited to individuals generating less than 1,000 US dollars annually and not used for primary employment, company environments, or commercial training. Okay. Pilot says, I'm glad FreeCAD exists, but to say it's good as Fusion is just lying. Yeah, I think you're right. It's just that learning curve. Sort of popping up on Fusion 360. I'll have to email, continue. It says enter a valid email address. Well, I did. It doesn't like my Gmail. Oh, there it is. Work phone. Dun, dun, dun. 8210. Oh, seriously. That's asking for country code. I don't want that. I want the United States. It's weird because, unfortunately, United States, state, I don't know, we'll just do that. 96273. It's weird because I'm retired here in Korea. I have a Korean phone number, but I'm an American citizen still. So, I don't know. It's just hobby and maker projects. What is your industry? I don't know. Other. Okay, I think I've got this working. Download and install Fusion for personal use. Okay. We're getting there. We're getting there. Pilot 3D says, I'm glad FreeCAD exists. Okay, yeah, we did that one. Your opinion? No, I don't want to give my opinion. I want to download now. It is downloading as we speak. But yeah, so I'm kind of in a quandary of what printer to get. Bamboo is doing bamboo things, which pisses me off, and just, I mean, they've got great products and everything, but it's that little thing that bugs me, that little shit they do. You know, oh, we don't transfer this information on log files and blah, 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 but then they did. And it's just like, they lied. Those bastards lied. You know, and it just bugs me when they do stuff like that. Let's see if we can get some different colors. Do some different colors in the background. Let's see. That. How do we do red over there? Do a little blue and red. Get a little bit of contrast going on there. So yeah, it just kind of pisses me off, that whole thing with Bamboo and, you know, oh, we don't transmit information via our log files, and then Grant 3D from 3D Musketeers, and those people ended up finding, oh, they do transmit that stuff and a bunch more, which they said that they wouldn't. So they were caught in numerous lies, and now they're getting in trouble because of this open source thing, and they use a lot of that open source stuff. it's like they're thumbing their nose at the open source rules and, threaten to sue people and whatever. And it's just like, I get it. You want to do your thing with your, your version and your this and that and whatever. But it's just like, come on. It's just not conducive, I guess, is what I want to say. It's just not good. Um, Bamboo doing bamboo things, yes, and it will continue doing bamboo things. Um, but then with Prusa, in their index system, which is coming out for the Core 1, of course, there's just like any other product that comes out. The first ones to get it, they're going to have problems and glitches, and there'll be firmware upgrades and all that stuff until they get it right. Um, that always happens, regardless of the company, even Bamboo. But now they're pushing that back even further. So now they're pushing back, which will push back the index system for the Core 1L, which will be pushed back even farther. So it's kind of like, do I want to bite the bullet and get a Core 1L and get the index system? It's just not enough. I just don't have a warm fuzzy just yet with that. I'm sure they'll work it, but the index system in Prusa, that's the biggest thing that they've done. And they really have to hit a home run out of the park. So I'm hesitantly waiting. Ferrith says, Prusa is cool, but you're paying. I know, and that's the problem. Holy crow. Imagine if Prusa ended up doing kind of an offshoot of Prusa with Chinese sourced materials in China and provide that. And still maintain their open source, still maintain their security mindedness, but be able to drop the prices down. Cool. That would go a long way. I don't know. But it's interesting because I've been looking at the Core 1s and the Core 1Ls and being on, Reddits and whatever, and on social media and their pages. Holy crap, there's so many people having problems with the Core 1 and the Core 1L. It's just like, ugh, it's that would be crazy. Yeah, it just, and it bugs me because it just seems like there's a lot more problems. But we know in the past that Prusa has been able to fix all those problems with firmwares and upgrades and blah, blah, blah. And it takes a while, just like with any other company. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Funny idea. The XL has more problems. Yeah, and that XL was like crazy expensive. When I almost got that, but then I saw the problems that they were having, and I started to think about it, how it's big and chunky, and I was like, you know what? In a year, that thing's going to be outdated. It's going to be gone. It's too big. It's too bulky. Things are going to, it's kind of like VCRs. When the first VCRs came out, they were just like monstrosities, top loading, conk, you put in your tape and whatever. And you knew that was going to be, it was going to shrink in size. It was going to get smaller. It's going to get better. It's not going to be as heavy. Same thing with the XL. It's like I saw that, and while that was cool, the problems that they ended up having, and there's still a lot of problems, I guess, from what I'm seeing, it's a lot better. And granted, you'll always have some type of problems with 3D printing, but it's just like comparing an old car versus, from 25 years ago versus a sports car today. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to get the XL, and it was too damn expensive. It's just, holy shit, was that thing expensive. That was absolutely insane. But the Core 1L, I mean, that is pretty damn expensive. We've gone over that in the past. Core 1L, but then you have, like the Snapmaker U1. Holy crow. So for the Core 1L, with no filtration unit, no extra PI sheet, that's like $1,800. and estimated lead time is 4 to 5 weeks. And then shipping on top of that, holy crap, you're going to be looking at let's see, that has changed, and of course there's going to be that. For me, getting it sent to Korea without any extended warranties or anything like that, that's going to end up being $2,240. And holy crow, that's not even extra parts or anything. You know, probably have 1 or 2 extra parts because I live in Korea or whatever. I'd like to get that out of the way. But holy crow, you know, about $250, $2,250 is what we got there. And then, but then the snap maker, $899. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if we go back. Where's that? Nope, there it is. So when I search for Prusa Core 1L, the very first thing that pops up is SnapMaker. Isn't that interesting? But yeah, 1,800 basically for that, and then adding that to the cart, proceeding to checkout, no extra stuff. It ends up being $2,240. But then the SnapMaker is $900. And then you got the 4. I just don't like the build size. I just don't like the build size. 270 by 270 by 270. I mean, that's respectable, but I think if they do another one, if they get up to like 300 and they're able to put in another tool head on there, so you have 5, and then really take advantage of that full spectrum technology and changing the colors and all that stuff, that would be pretty amazing. I think that would definitely be a thing. So yeah, interesting. It would be neat. Piled says, I'm surprised there aren't more Japanese printer companies. I'm, considering that Japan was like the VCR kings and the electronics kings after World War II, and it was crazy. I think I'm kind of surprised too, but I think it's because they don't have the access to the raw materials to do all that stuff. And I think they realize that, and they're just like, screw it. I think they just bowed out of that. I don't know of any Japanese 3D printer companies. To be honest with you, off the top of my head, I don't know if there are any. So, Piled says, I think a larger version is coming. Yeah, I think there is. And I think if they, especially with that full spectrum stuff, if you get into having a machine like a U1L, large size, so that way you could have 5 tool heads, and with that full spectrum stuff, that would be amazing. So yeah, let's see what we got there. Filament, add on accessories. So let's throw that on there. We'll do that. Hot end. Dryer bundle. Nozzle kit pads. Hot end socks. Yeah, we'll throw that in. We'll add all that into the mix. And we're down here at the bottom. It says 1,106. And delivery FedEx. Let's see what this would come out to. This will be interesting. Delivery. Let me just go to this page here because I don't want country or region. It won't deliver to APO, AP, phone number. 8210. I don't think I need to do a phone number. Shipping to the United States. So change your region outside the US. Oh, I got to go to the global store. So, holy crow. This is going to be interesting. 3D Projects, greetings. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Yeah. So we're kind of going over, just kind of, we did our cell phone print thing, and now we're just kind of talking about 3D printers and things like that, SnapMaker printers, and let me see. For Mr. 4-pack, PEI sheet, hot ends. Let's just take that down to 2 hot ends. The top, SnapMaker. So that would be basically $1,187 for the U1 with the $150 cover, 2 hot ends, 1 PEI sheet as a backup. You know what? I could take that off. Let's just get rid of that. Ah, 3D Project says, Root Grader 5 Pro on order here, otherwise longtime K1 Max user. Oh, cool. We were just talking about FlashForge on how they ended up, what was it? FlashForge, advertising. No, FlashForge lockdown? FlashForge closes ecosystem and puts AI ads into printing. So, dun 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 dun. Yeah, so basically what it is, FlashForge recently released firmware updates and a software suite that restricted third-party slicer access, such as Orca Slicer. Makes me wonder if FlashForge and Bamboo are in cahoots behind the scenes. I don't know. I don't think they are. Maybe they are. But it says introduce advertisements for AI services and forces users into closed proprietary ecosystem for remote printing. This lockdown has caused considerable backlash with 3D printing community. Will it cause problems? I don't think so. Recent firmware updates prevent older and newer printers like Adventure 5 series and Creator 5 from accepting remote print transfers from third-party slicers such as Orca Slicer. You're forced to use their proprietary software, which in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really matter as long as their slicer works. It's good to go. Which has reportedly been unstable, includes AI integration advertisements. I'm not a big fan of ads. Remote monitoring and printing require constant connection to FlashForge's cloud servers. Let me pull this up because I want y'all to see this. So, boom, here it is. Advertisements, AI services, which I get it, AI models and blah, blah, blah. So here, so you can't use Orca Slicer or third-party slicers. You have to use theirs. Again, I don't know. I think Orca should just be the slicer company for everybody. And this is coming for me from, I use the Creality K2 Plus with Creality Print. Forcing users to use, reportedly unstable. Of course, eventually they'll fix that. But again, why recreate the wheel? I get it. The reason why is because you want to make more money, and that's why you do AI models and blah, blah, blah. but it should be just a separate plug-in, and it shouldn't have to replace the slicer. I don't know. There should be something that they could be. Users have heavily criticized the brand for restricting printer access post-purchase without explicit change logs, leading many to view these actions as anti-consumer. The Rossman, that's his name, Louis Rossman. You can refuse the firmware updates to mitigate this lockdown, maintain the older firmware, utilize local storage, avoid cloud printing entirely, put it on a USB card and do it the old-fashioned way. Advanced users are bypassing the locked ecosystem by overrating the stock operating system with custom firmware like Clipper or Zmod. But is the average person going to know how to do that? Probably not. Yeah, I just, and you got some workarounds on this stuff, but the fact that you have FlashForge closing down their ecosystem, and I've said this in the past, you're going to see more of this where people are going to they're going to take their toys and this is my sandbox and this is it. If you want to play with some other toys, you got to go to some other sandbox. But yeah, I don't know. It's not saying that FlashForge printers are bad. They're just doing things that more advanced users don't like what they're doing. Kind of like more advanced users don't like what Bamboo is doing in closing down their locking down their ecosystem and forcing you to use their cloud service, which really they said was all about safety and security. Protecting the user that's the reason why we're locking down our system, according to Bamboo. But the problem is that before, there were not hordes of people hacking into your Bamboo printers or any printers for that matter, printing out benchies at 2 o'clock in the morning unbeknownst to you. That has never been a problem. What Bamboo ended up saying is, hey, we've got 2 million hits a day on our servers, and so it's their problem. It's Bamboo's problem. It's on their side. It's not your problem. If users if they really, really wanted more security and limit the risk associated with those unauthorized hits, 2 million per day, just have you do another login and password. Boom. You don't have, see, it's kind of like saying, we don't want you to go out into the rain, and with the old Bamboo system, you could be in your house outside of the rain and you print and do whatever you want, and nobody could have access to your machine through a cloud service because you could print everything on your own. Then Bamboo said, okay, well, we're going to require you to go through our system, so your printer has to get authorization up in the cloud on our servers and blah, 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 have this handshake whole deal thing, which is actually taking you out of your house and into the storm itself, so there's more risk. So now you're required, and before you didn't have to. You didn't have to be online to be able to print. Now you have to, and that's actually, you're putting more risk of you on your machine. So it was never about safety and security. Okay, so that's the whole thing with Bamboo. Yeah. 3D Project says, true, you can do land mode, avoid some of that stuff. Theirs is a fork of Orca. Yep, the community gets bugged about it. New users don't really care. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I ended up saying. The advanced users were up in arms about this and blah, blah, blah. But it does beg the question, kind of like with Bamboo, and they said, oh, we'll never transmit all of this stuff, over our log files, and then they found out that they lied their ass off. Ferrith says, all right, Steve, I got to head out. Glad you're back. Have a great morning, and you have a good day as well, sir. Awesome. Good seeing you again. Always good to see the people on the stream. We got so many cool people here, and people that are way smarter than me. So yeah, I'm hoping through osmosis some of that comes into play. But getting back to the whole thing, like Prussia lied their ass off, saying, oh, we will never transmit this information over the log files. And Grand 3D Musketeers and others found out that yes, they actually did, and worse. And now they're doing this whole thing with the open source and going against the open source rules, which is very problematic. And now you have FlashForge doing a Bamboo-esque type of lockdown, and it's just not as highly polished as Bamboo, and a lot of people are up in arms. But and then this also another question that we have is that these are Chinese companies, and if China says, hey, we want all the information from all of your users, those Chinese companies have to provide that stuff to the Chinese government, no questions asked. It's not like the United States. It's not like Western countries where we can say, hey, stick it where the sun don't shine. No, you have to. It's just, that's all there is to it. People don't understand that. And then, they get all the information of everything that you're printing. Now we get into copyright infringement, and you have little, mom and pop designers and printers and selling their things. And then all of a sudden China has, factories of thousands of 3D printers that are taking that item that is copyrighted, and they're mass producing it. And the average person, little home-based business thing, has no idea how to proceed with, doing a cease and desist or what legal options that they have. It's just, and the damage has already been done. So by the time, mom and pop or little Johnny's doing a side gig, and gets sees a Chinese company that is popping these things out, his product out all over. By the time he gets smart on that, if he gets smart on that, China has already made a ton of money. And if they finally get a cease and desist, and it's like, okay, we stop. We make a bunch of money. We'll move on to the next item. Or they take the items that they can glean off of the interwebs and the servers, and people can say, hey, well, this is this, and there's no copyright. We'll copyright that. We'll make this our intellectual property. So they steal things before, people can actually make it their own. And again, that causes a lot of problems. There's something to be said for that. For the average user, kind of like printing a little phone stand that I made on Tinkercad, I probably don't really care, cosplay stuff and whatever. It's probably not going to make a difference. But the more you get into 3D printing and the more you pay attention to what's going on, the more concerned you're going to get. So, oh, and wasn't it FlashForge? FlashForge gun statement. They stepped on their crank a while back. FlashForge faced major backlash. Concerns of their terms of service include tracking or potentially reporting users who print firearms or weapons components to authorities. That was huge, because now, is it really a firearm or is it cosplay? They did an official retraction and clarification. No active monitoring. They do not track, scan, or access anybody's prints, files, or activities. Well, how are you good? How you said in your terms of service that you included tracking and reporting users who print firearms or weapon components to authorities, but then they said, "Oh, well, we're not going to track, we're not going to scan, we're not going to access any prints or files or activities." They clarified that they cannot and will not generate or collect information on users. They will only cooperate with authorities upon receiving official lawful request. The controversy originally sparked following inquiries from officials such as Manhattan District Attorney Office urging manufacturers to combat ghost guns by implementing design safeguards. While some officials push for firmware level blocks on restricted shapes, FlashForge confirms they do not police user files or report unauthorized data. So this is like the second time that FlashForge has stepped on their crank, and so this is strike two for FlashForge. So the first one is hey, we're gonna report you if you print firearms, and people are like, well, you can't report unless you know what I'm printing, so that means that you're tracking and you're keeping some type of file of what I have printed on my machine, which is absolutely true. And then everybody got in a big fuss over it. So then they're like, oh crap, we're not selling products. People will hate us. And so we're going to do a retraction on this. But the thing is, they already said that was what they were going to do, which requires that you have to track what people are printing. And if you see a gun or you see a lower for a pistol or a rifle or whatever, not even differentiate, the common sense says, well, what if this is cosplay? They didn't even take that into consideration. It's just, but it went through enough levels of supervisors and the owner of FlashForge and the whole 9 yards to push this thing out to the point of where they said, hey, yeah, we're going to report you if you do this. All of that stuff was in play. You just don't arbitrarily say, oh, we're going to report you. And then somebody says, well, you can't report us unless you gather what we print off of the machine. And then they were probably like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah, you're right. We didn't really mean that. Bullshit, So this is strike two for FlashForge. I'm just kind of like, I like to, I wish I was ignorant at times. So that way I didn't know these things. So in working in electronics in a past life before I retired here in Korea, I was an electronics technician for Colorado Department of Corrections. And so I did everything from installing computer landlines, camera systems, redundant storage, fiber optics, did control panels for cells and facilities, did stun fences, and so if somebody touched the fence, it would trigger an alarm and the cameras would automatically go to that zone and zoom in and, installing cameras, repairing cameras, doing all that stuff. So knowing all of this stuff and how that works, and then of course working with software that cannot have any back doors so that anybody can look at it, because prison camera feeds and audio and things like that have to be used and can be used as evidence. And so you have to have an unbroken chain of evidence, and having a back door to those video and audio files, that is just kind of a problem there. So because that could, somebody could say, well, hey, somebody on the outside had access to those files, boom, the case is done, it's thrown out. Even though it could show somebody was stabbing and stabbing somebody and hurting them, that could be thrown out because the chain of custody wasn't followed. So we got Noodles 5439 says, what is Tinkercad? Tinkercad is, if you go to, we'll just pull that up and we'll answer your question right now. Tinkercad is a program that, as we pull it up here, Tinkercad by Autodesk and Tinkercad.com. And what you can end up doing is a number of things. You can create 3D designs, you could do circuits, you could do code blocks. What I ended up doing is just using Tinkercad to make simple models and do 3D printing. So, and it is by far the easiest CAD-like software. I've done a number of items on this, and I ended up making the cell phone holder right there, the one in red, and we actually printed it out right here on the K2 Plus. So got to do some adjustments to it, but it is a real easy software to use. Learning curve is really low, which is good for me. But you can, you could bring shapes in here, and you can make them big and small and whatever, and you could put, you could put some holes in things, you can make them as big and change the dimensions and whatever. So it's kind of cool because you can make a lot of cool items. yeah. So it's a thing. It's there. Um, but with that said, Noodles says, "Oh, you need Fusion 360." Funny you mentioned that because I just downloaded that. So we talked about that and how I need to get off of the Tinkercad, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with Tinkercad. But the learning curve on Fusion 360, I don't know. There's more things that I want to do that I can't do in Tinkercad. So like I'd like to fillet some of these edges, and I'm limited to what I can do in Tinkercad. I mean, you can do a lot, but I think I really need to go to the next level and go to Fusion. That's what people have been recommending me. So yeah, yeah. Thanks for the recommendation, the confirmation that I need to get busy and learn how to do Fusion 360, which I just downloaded and will be installing that. And good Lord, I just get tired of. If it takes a long time, I get tired. It becomes problematic because I got so much stuff going on. But yeah, I really need to buckle down and get onto Fusion 360. I looked at FreeCAD. I tried doing this. FreeCAD is just, I got to remove that. I tried doing that, following a tutorial on YouTube, and it's just like, oh, do this, this. And of course, they don't do it for me. I'm low speed, high drag. I'm the type of guy that if you do a tutorial, it's like, well, take your cursor, go over here to the top left-hand side, and we hover over here, and here's where it says extrude or whatever it is, that's the level I need. But unfortunately, with like FreeCAD and stuff like this, it's like, it's crazy because people will just kind of run through it. Well, just do this, this, this. It's too fast and it's just not conducive. Noodle says 360 will test your resolve. I know. You have a legacy account. Oh, man, that must be nice. Kind of like the streaming software that I'm using is Ecamm Live. I bought the software. It's a streaming software for Mac. And so, you can do kind of, text, graphics, you can do images, you can do sounds. Matter of fact, I mean, what are some of the sounds that I could end up doing here? I could do some party noises. Yeah. Applause. I could do some cool stuff. I can do picture-in-picture. I can do interviews. I can do a lot of cool stuff on the streaming software. But back in the day, I bought Ecamm Live many, 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 many years ago. And so I have a lifetime membership. I thought back then a lifetime membership was expensive. But now Ecamm Live, you cannot buy the program. So it's kind of like you, lifetime legacy account, as I'm assuming. I have a lifetime license. And people nowadays, you have to do a subscription service. So yeah, you say you got a legacy account. That is awesome. So, dang it. So, but at least, yeah, I'll try to use 360. I really need to find a good tutorial. So if anybody out there has good tutorial videos on Fusion 360 for somebody like me who's dumb as a bag of hammers, put it in the comments section. Let me know. Because I really, really I want to go to the next level in designing things, but it's that inverse learning curve, time spent to be able to get to that next level. Like I said, I'm lazy. But yeah, I'd like to do that eventually. So yeah, I'm out. The Hawaiian coffee is gone. My latte's gone. So anyway, that's what we got going on. But yeah, Tinkercad we could do some cool stuff with. And of course, looking at getting a second printer. I'm kind of like Snapmaker U1. That looks really good because of the 4 colors. Be able to do hue forge. And of course, that full spectrum color changing, being able to get different shades of colors is pretty amazing. That's a new thing that's coming out. I think if, like we said before, having, the cyan, magenta, blue, and black, kind of like the printer colors that you have, you can make whatever you know, whatever colors you want with those 5. I think we're going to see that in 3D printing. And so I think that, you know, like Snapmaker U1 has their 4 tool head changer and things like that. Hopefully their next one will come out with 5, and then they'll be able to use that full spectrum technology and be able to do whatever colors they want in the different shades. But they're a little limited now with just the 4 colors. So yeah, Prusa Core 1L, as much as I want to get it, I still think that Prusa is a couple steps behind when it comes to company like Bamboo. Bamboo really has their user interface down and everything, and they're good to go. But and they got their own lockdown problems and abusing open source, but it's just too darn expensive. So hopefully U1 Snapmaker will come out with a U1L, which I hope would be maybe 300 cube build area, which would allow for another build, another tool head, so that way they get 5, and then you could do that. The only thing with Prusa is that besides being overly expensive is their index system has been pushed back on the Core 1s, which means the index system on the Core 1L is going to be pushed back even farther than that. So I don't think we'll even see index on the Core 1L until next year, honestly. The way it looks, I'll be surprised if they don't. And then they have the bumps and the upgrades and trying to get everything squared away, which will take a lot of time. And if you look at the Core or the Prusa XL, it took a lot of time, and there's still people having problems with that thing. It's gotten a lot better, but the index system is hot. But that's going to be, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. I could always get another K2 Plus, but I want something that has multiple tool heads. Would I use it that much? I don't know. Maybe. But I think if you did, if U1 or Snapmaker did a U1L and did like a 300 or 350 cube build area and had like 5 heads on there, 6, do 6 heads or whatever, that would be on it. That would be smoking, because then you could do the full spectrum. Then you could do, support material, PLA or PETG as your support material, or vice versa. I think that would really, really knock it out of the park. So, but the index system is, it's going to take some time. So I don't know. Just, and I didn't know that Prusa wasn't Clipper based. I'm pretty sure. Are Prusa printers Clipper? I don't think they are. No, they're out of the box. They do not run Clipper. Ships their printers with their own custom proprietary firmware based off of Marlin. They're all machines like the MK3S 4 Mini XL stock Marlin-based firmware. Modifications. Yeah, so they don't do Clipper. But for the average person, they're not really going to care. So, yeah. But, yeah, it's not like Prusa is going to go away. They're going to be in for the long haul. I think it's just the problem is the price and the cost of their materials is really that's what keeps the price high. Whereas China can just crank out tons of stuff. And even during the embargo and all that stuff and the tariff wars that everybody was worried about, we actually saw 3D printing companies from China lower their prices. So they still made some money, not as much, but they were able to offer deals during the tariff wars. And so, yeah, China's got they're a huge force to be reckoned with when we're talking about creating 3D printers and all that stuff. George says the index system is spread. Looks like everyone is coming out with one. Yeah, I know. That is going to be the huge thing. So when index comes out with that, and then the Chinese companies come out with this, holy crow. So yeah, if I wanted a Snapmaker U1 with some, the top cover, a few replacement parts, stuff like that, it was going to be about $1,100 total to get it shipped here to Korea. But when you're talking about like the Core 1L with no index system yet, because that won't be out until next year, we're looking at $2,250 to $2,240. I don't know. Noodle says starting tips for 360: hang a punching bag, check requirements, and run it on Windows 360 will outpace Mac in 5 or 6 years. Step away from it when need be. If you need a punching bag, holy crow. Yeah. I don't know if Windows will outpace Mac. Honestly, I have a Windows laptop, and I tell you what, compared to my Mac, I've got a Mac Mini. I do video editing, I do multi-channel and all that stuff. I mean, it's just, I go back to Windows and it's just like old, clunky. It's just, I don't know. It's not as refined as Mac. I don't know. I haven't looked at 360, Windows 360. I don't think it will come up to Mac. 360 outpaces Mac. I don't know. Versus 360 versus Mac. You mean Windows? No. 360? What are you talking about 360? 365 is Office. Fusion outpaces Mac. I'm not sure about that. George says Mac is more secure. Yeah, that's for sure, I would say. Noodle says Fusion outpaces Mac. That would be dependent upon the specs on your Mac, to be honest. I find 360 runs well on Mac. It's just not a fast program on the best computer. Yeah, it depends. Fusion 360 software. Oh, okay. I thought you meant Windows came out with a new something or other. Okay, gotcha. Like I told you, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. I'm more of a spork. So thanks for clearing that up. I was like, what? Windows came out with a new thing? But if I can do on my Mac, like in my Mac Mini, let me see, what do we got about this Mac? Apple M2 Pro, memory is 32 gig. Yeah, and I do multi-camera editing, the whole 9 yards. I've had, it's a pretty robust machine, so I don't think 360 would be a problem, unless I did something monstrably huge, and then it would probably run down the resources and it would slow down. But I think with the stuff that I'm doing, or the stuff that I want to do, is kind of like, not huge, gigantic things. We're talking 3D printing models. I think it should be good enough. But I don't know. I was Windows when Windows first came out. I remember it was 1986 or 87 is when I was in the U.S. Army. I joined in 85. I did basic training, and then it was 86. I went to AIT for however many months it was. So I think it was 1987. Yeah, I think it was almost 1987. And then we got the first computers into the Army, and that's back when it was like a 3.5-inch floppy drive. So you had a 3.5-inch floppy for the program, and then you had a 3.5-inch floppy for Multimate, which was the word processing program. You had the giant monitor, which was green, the green letters and stuff like that. You didn't even have color monitors. I was I was there in the beginning and got into computers and was Windows for quite a long time, but then updating Windows, I went through that whole thing, the spinning ball of death and whatever it was. If you had to update your computer, you updated your computer. It was an all-day thing. You had to update all your software. I went through all of that. And then when I switched to Mac, it was like a fine wine. It was just a beautiful bouquet of technology essence. It was just pretty amazing. Terry says there would be no Windows without Mac. Steve Jobs gave Bill Gates his GUI when Gates couldn't get a GUI to work on Windows. I didn't know that. Interesting. Noodle says Fusion 360 team keeps updating their stuff. Back in the early days, it was crazy. George says, I hated when Windows first came out. I wanted to go back to DOS. I remember DOS. It was like, yeah, I went through all of that. I'm 60. So, but yeah. Matter of fact, I just downloaded Fusion 360 for personal use. Do I? Yep. So I'll be installing that after we get done with this stream. But yeah, I'm kind of at an impasse because I want to get a good second printer. But since I live in Korea, part of me wants to get another K2 Plus. But then again, I know Creality is probably going to be working on has been working on a multi-head tool head system. Because everybody else is SnapMaker and everybody else, FlashForge and all that. It'll be interesting. Yeah, it is. I don't know. I want long term and I want good, but I don't want to have to pay Prusa prices. And everybody, now that SnapMaker came out and Index came out, everybody's going to be rushing. So it'll be interesting to see what the next printers come out. Noodle says, thanks for service. I did a few tours in the Mediterranean and the Coral Sea as an Airedale. Oh, okay. AMH-A6s. Well, thank you. You served as well. Awesome. Isn't it weird though? I don't know. Maybe it's there's a number of other vets that I know when people thank me for their service or thank them for their service. And I had a few buddies, we get together every now and then, and it's like, yeah, and then my therapist thanked me for my service, and it's just like, I don't know, the guys that I know, we don't like that. It's just like, yeah, okay, whatever, yeah. I mean, I get it. As a fellow vet, that's cool. But when civilians do it, I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable. I had a therapist, every time I saw that therapist, good Lord, it was like 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes of this lady heaping on, thanks and praise and this and that. And it just got to the point of where it's like I had to tell her, I said, lady, every time that we meet, you always say the same thing, with just a little bit different. Once is good. You don't have to keep doing this, and appreciate you for your service every single time we meet. And it just seemed plasticky. It seemed like part of a script. And it was just, I don't know, she just rubbed me the wrong way. It was just, because every single time it was just, I'm so thankful for what you've done and standing in the gap for freedom and the sacrifices that you made and blah, 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 blah. And she just goes on, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, another 5 minutes of this shit. Yeah, it just, I don't know. If you're a veteran, you kind of understand what I'm talking about. Hey, thanks for serving, appreciate it. So in other words, we have this common ground or background where it's like, yeah, the military sucked, but we got through it. There's that camaraderie there. But I don't know. It's just, man. Noodle says he likes the parking spot at Tractor Supply. Right? Oh, I totally get that. Yeah. Yeah, fun stuff. So, haven't been to a Tractor Supply in a long time. We're coming up here, 4 years? I think we've been here in Korea 4 years now, just over 4 years. And this coming October will be our 5th year. So yeah, and before that, we lived a year on Oahu, and then before that, we lived in southern Colorado, and that's where I had been to Tractor Supply and Lowe's and Home Depot. Home Depot I really like. Did a lot of rehab work and stuff, but they don't have Home Depot or Lowe's here in Korea. So they don't have like a one-stop shopping place for home improvement and stuff, and that kind of, I don't know, that kind of bugs me. So we'll see how it goes. Anyway, so I'm not sure which the next printer I will get, but yeah, we'll do something. We'll do something. The next big thing on the agenda for us here in Korea is we're going to be, now that we're back from Hawaii on our vacation, we're going to start looking at apartments and buy an investment property. So buy an apartment, rent it out. We're thinking we're probably going to turn about $1,100 per month profit after management and all that stuff. After taxes, I don't know, take off another 30% or whatever, which would be, we figured about 1,100. Nope. Times 30% for taxes, 330 minus. So we'll probably make about $800 a month, $900 a month, after tax. So that would keep me in money for, 3D printing and stuff like that. And then of course we'll be able to use that money to kind of fund some of our vacation trips and things like that. We got some other places that we want to go to, but that's going to be the next thing for this year. We don't have any other trips planned for the rest of this year because we went to Vietnam, went to Philippines, and then now Hawaii. Of course, Philippines was earlier. That was last year. So yeah, we went to Vietnam, Philippines. Yeah, we went to Philippines and Hawaii. So we're done with vacations this year. But get that apartment, and that's going to be the next big push, is doing that. After that gets all set up and rented, then we'll do some home improvements to our place at our apartment that we own here. Noodle says, I used to make some parts that South Korea was my #1 buyer, Solo Machine Shop. Oh, really? Cool. Wow. Yeah. Talking about machine shop and CNC and stuff, I was never into that, but this recent hubbub about Washington State and California saying that 3D printers are going to be verboten unless it has some, gun printing identification software, which is basically impossible to do right now. And then even then, it can't tell the difference between a real gun or cosplay or things like that. But it'll basically hamstring Washington State and California when it comes to 3D printing. So which is insane, because they're like, oh, you can make all these ghost guns with a 3D printer. And it's like, yeah, I can print out some stuff on my printer here in Korea. I could do gun parts. I could do stuff like that. I wouldn't do that, because you can get home CNC machines, desktop CNC machines could actually make a great gun. Of course, you don't even need a 3D printer or a CNC machine to make a gun. I can go to Home Depot and make guns. It's go to a hardware store. I can make guns. But yeah, that is going to cripple. It's going to be crazy. So I don't know. Maybe it's good that I retired here in Korea, so I can actually have 3D printers that aren't limited. But then again, I'm not going to be printed out. I'll be printing out cosplay stuff, but I wouldn't be doing lowers and things like that. And I know people print out lowers, but the thing is that that's the responsibility of the person who does that. If you're going to make a dedicated lower for like a Glock pistol or whatever, it's there's rules and laws, and you got to report that stuff. But I think this whole hubbub about ghost guns are just absolutely insane, and it's out of control, and you don't see that. Criminals don't use ghost guns. It's just, you think a criminal's going to go out, You think they're going to buy a 3D printer. You think they're going to go through the learning process to print with those exotic filaments and high temp, materials to be able to make a gun. And then it's, there's just so many steps. It's like, no, I'm just going to get a gun. It's so much easier. It's just absolutely crazy. George says $50 at Home Depot. Yes, I know. George says the worst part is stuff like this is it will spread. Yes, absolutely. Stupid people will get a hold of it and think that they're going to be saving the world by limiting. Just insane. So another part of me is get a 3D printer that isn't based in the United States. And since I'm not in the United States, I won't be limited because they don't do stupid stuff like that here in Korea. Keep my fingers crossed. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what people are thinking. People in the United States, some people think that if you take away everything, it'll be a perfect utopia. But I've worked in prisons for over 11 years. I've worked in law enforcement. Criminals will make weapons. If you outlaw the weapons, they don't care. They will get the weapons. They will make the weapons. And, I just don't think it's, I don't know, just stupid people piss me off. George said it would cost them more to print than acquire it by other means. Exactly. What criminal is going to say, oh, I'm going to get Prusa XL or a Core 1, or I'm going to get a Bamboo H2C or whatever, and then learn how to use it, and then buy filament to, and then they got to get the file. No criminal's going to do that. No criminal's going to do that. Flock cameras. Right? Yeah. But that's the one thing I do appreciate with Prusa is that they're security minded. So that if you want to print something out, you're not required to use their cloud services. So, yeah. That's another part that kind of pushes me towards Prusa, but I don't know. Hopefully Snapmaker doesn't do any stupid stuff. Terry says part of Eastern Washington State is trying to leave Washington to become part of Idaho. I don't blame them. More and more people are leaving California. New York, businesses are leaving in droves. And what was that other? Mamdani, he's driving people away with higher taxes. Then there was some other one, some lady who's in charge, who's never been in government, never held a job before, and she's driving businesses away like, I think it's Washington it is? I don't know. But just, crazy, crazy stuff. Driving businesses, Seattle. That was it, Seattle, the Seattle lady. Driving businesses away, and I think she's talking bad about Starbucks, and Starbucks is basically like, see ya. We're out of here. It's just like, yeah, all the thousands and thousands of jobs that they supply and the tax revenue. Holy crow, because not only is like Starbucks in Seattle, they're bringing a lot of tax revenue just as being the big business that Starbucks is. But when you start closing down stores and people losing jobs, there's the tax revenue for the employees that pay taxes. So it is absolutely crazy. Dun, dun. Oh, this is new. Starbucks is moving to Tennessee. Ooh. Ooh. Noodle says, chat keeping you in touch on what's going on back home. Yes, it is. I try to stay abreast of what's going on in the United States, but I do have to admit I spend some more time on what's going on here in Korea because this is where we retired and lived. So, but yeah, it's good to find this out. And a bunch of people send me messages and emails, and of course through the streams and stuff like this, keep me updated on stuff that I don't see. Terry's real good on that. A number of other, George is good on that. Let's see, Ferrithus is good. There's a number of other people that send me emails and stuff like that. So say, hey, did you see this or whatever, blah blah blah. Here's or stuff that they're doing. So yeah, kind of good, kind of good. So anyway, you know what I'm going to do? I think what I'm going to end up doing is we're going to cut this stream out. At least that is the news. Yeah. Yep. But I appreciate it. Everybody that sends me information. And with that being said, Terry says Amazon Fresh grocery store is closing all Seattle locations. Seattle. They're shooting themselves in the foot. That lady doesn't know what she's doing. I mean, I'm an independent. So that way I'm in the middle of the road. I like good ideas from the left and the right and everywhere in between, but they have to be good ideas. It has to be based on common sense. And when you have people like Mamdani in New York and that lady in Seattle, people in California, holy crow, the governor of California, what's his face, just absolutely insane. Terry also says that Target is closing down places in Seattle. Noodles out. Get that punching bag. Yes, thank you for the recommendation. I will. I gotta force myself to do Fusion 360, and we'll get a little. Pray for me. Maybe I should get a punching bag. We'll see. I don't know. It's got to be pretty dumbed down for me to be able to do that. But yeah, it's just absolutely crazy on some of the things that's going on, and just forcing people and businesses out of the state because of oppressive taxes. There's only so many taxes that a business will take or people will take until they say, I'm out of here, Or businesses get to a place where they'll stay in the state, but if there's a limit on, you get to a certain limit and you're going to hit that limit and then you're going to be taxed some crazy amount, businesses are just going to go up to that amount and not do any more work. Or they'll just leave. And that's what a lot of businesses are doing. George says New York is talking about seizing apartments. I just saw a little notification yesterday on that. And it's where they want to basically, the state is going to take over the apartments and be run by the tenants and blah, 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 and co-ops and whatever. In other words, they're dissolving private property, which is insane. That is going to be horrendous, because if you've looked at any place where the government takes over housing, it ends up being a disaster. There's not one country on earth where that has been done where it turned out well. Terry talks about Washington State passed the millionaire tax. Yeah. And it would be like, you know what? Millionaire tax, I'm out of here. If I was a millionaire and you're going to oppressively tax me, I'll just take my millions and go somewhere else. That gives me a better tax rate. So there's something to be said, for those places, for people that say, oh, we need to tax the rich and pay their fair share. The majority of the people don't pay federal taxes. So yeah, it's going to end up being goodbye New York, goodbye Washington. Those places that do that are getting to the point of where people are like, I love this state. I've lived here. I was born here. My family's here. My parents, grandparents lived in this state. But there comes a time where the taxes are going to be so oppressive that they're just going to be like, yeah, I'm out of here. And they're going to take their businesses. And if they have employees, it's a double ding on those places that have oppressive tax systems, Piled 3D says, everyone with money has already left the UK. Oh, wow. Yeah, and that's, the UK, you guys have been having problems with a lot of immigrants and things like that. Just from what I see on the news, and I get my news sources from like BBC, independent news sources from different countries, and of course Korean news sources and stuff like that. So I try to get a smattering of different news sources to try to, get the whole picture of things. That is the goal of the people that run the state. Yeah, they want the state to have the means of production and the means of housing and all of that stuff to provide this utopia that has never worked anywhere. in the world. It has always ended in corruption, unfortunately. Dun, dun, dun. There are 5 Democrats, Socialists of America, won their primaries across the country. And I think that's the problem, is that if you offer a ton of free stuff, stupid people want free stuff. I want free stuff. I just called myself stupid. I want free stuff. But the thing is that as much as I like free stuff, somebody's got to pay for it. And whenever the government's involved, it's fraught with waste and abuse and fraud. So, yeah. George says, hello, Cuba. Yeah. So, the means of production and things, and it would be different if the state, like New York, is wanting to take over apartments so that it's co-op and tenant owned, owned by the state. That's for the tenants, for the good of the people. It would be different if the state had enough money coming in that wasn't oppressive to the people that have businesses and jobs and employ, thousands and tens of thousands of people, and be able to buy properties and be able to still pay the mortgage on those properties, at least break even, and then provide lower cost housing. But the problem is they can't. They never have, and they never will. But if they did that on their own, if the state of New York bought an apartment building and they were able to finance it without oppressively taxing people, and offer lower cost housing, I would be all for that. But that's not what they're talking about doing. They're talking about taking over private ownership of apartments and buildings and so on and so forth, and then doing that. But the problem is that when you take over that, it's not cost effective. In other words, the expenses are going to be too high. And there's people in New York, businessmen that have owned property in New York for decades and decades, 40, 50 years, that are closing up buildings and just putting them in mothballs and waiting for whoever's going to get elected next. So we're not talking about mom and pop people owning those places. We're talking about huge, massively rich people that are like, hey, it's more cost effective for us to shut down the entire building and not have any housing than try to follow these arbitrary rules of saying, well, you can't raise the rent over a certain amount. And it's like, well, we have to redo, and the cost of the rehab is more expensive, and so now we can't afford to do that. So they just shutter, they close up the building, and they kick everybody out. And it's like, well, there went your housing. Now you have less housing, which causes an increase in the prices of housing and the increase in rent as well, because not many people can buy. It's just absolutely insane on what we're seeing, and it's just going to be a death spiral. And then if the state does take over those properties, and wasn't it New York that also said that they're trying to get it to where for the first 6 months that you try to sell a property, that you have to offer it to a nonprofit organization, corruption in the making, NGOs and things like that, that you have to offer it to nonprofits first before you can privately sell it to an individual. That's insane. That is too far overreaching for any state. And then, and then the state will determine who can and can't stay in those apartments based on equity. Wait and see. Yeah, I believe that. Terry says we can't have universal health care because of government corruption. They got universal health care here in Korea. It's only about $110 a month. Piled 3D says house rents and house prices inclusive building more houses, incentivize building more houses. The problem is when it's legal to build a house. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah. High rents incentivize building more houses. But the problem is those high house prices, when you build a new house, it's going to be priced based off of the current price of the houses that are there. And if those are already high, the new house that you build is going to be worth that much. It's going to be assessed at that same value as similar properties, which are going to be higher priced, which isn't going to give you low rents or low mortgages. So yeah, the problem is when it's illegal to build a house. Yeah, if the more obstacles that you put in the way of building a house or properties or apartments or whatever, just look at Canada. Canada's going through that whole problem there. Their housing crisis is even way worse. I would say 5 or 10 times worse than the United States. So yeah, it's just crazy stuff that we got going on. We're not talking about 3D printing or printing out little cell phone stands anymore. But anyway, so I think we'll end up doing is we'll just go ahead and do that. And with that being said, we're going to buy another apartment here as a rental. I think it's going to be a good thing because home ownership is becoming harder here in Korea. So that means the rental properties are more people are going to do that. So I think buying this rental property for us is going to provide, of course, it's going to be paid off. So we'll have a positive income coming in. Yeah, that's where everything is pushing. You know, it's going to renters never go away. When you have high housing prices, that's when rentals do really good. And then when house prices goes down, that's where buying houses or property or units comes into play, and then the rental market kind of eases up a little bit. But either way, the majority of people in Korea rent their properties. So yeah, like 70% of them or more. So getting a rental property and renting it out is going to be a real good thing for us, and I think will continue to be for quite some time. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. I would have liked to have bought 2, but the problem is the ability to get financing here in Korea, because as a foreigner on a visa, we're going to have higher interest rates, and there's actually a limit on what we can do in certain places and where we can buy. Again, the state is doing this, but you know, you play by their rules. So we'll get one property, we'll see how that goes, and we'll take it from there. So our next step is we know the apartment complexes that we want to look at. There's Complex 8 and Complex 9 over in Asan Technical Valley, which is about 20-30 minutes away. It's close to the military base, so it's a good rental area. And whether it rents to Koreans or Americans, we will make positive cash flow. So we just need to figure out, do we go with the 2-year-old property or the 8 or 9-year-old property? 8 or 9-year-old property apartment complex, prices are cheaper, but with a newer one, it's newer, and yeah, it is what it is. I don't know. We need to make a decision, and we're in this place where we don't know if we want to. We kind of want to buy a place that we would want to live in. So if we downsize from a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, let's say we get older and whatever, and I don't like 3D printing anymore. We just, go to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then we'll rent this place out. We would make, a little bit more money. We would want it to be a newer place, obviously, better quality, yada yada yada, all that stuff. So the newer property, the 2-year-old property, has the air conditioners in it, has more conveniences, up-to-date conveniences, and so on and so forth. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting. Terry said, if I sold my 2,000 square foot house today, I could only afford to pay cash for a 1,200 to 1,300 square foot house. That's crazy. But that's similar to what we found in the United States when we lived in southern Colorado, that we wouldn't be able to get a 3-bedroom, 2-bath because the house prices were so crazy in our area. So even if we sold, we wouldn't make a huge amount of money, and that was the concern for us. So when we saw that we could retire overseas, we could take the money and we could buy an apartment. We got the 4-bedroom, 2-bath here, underground parking, landscaping, everything. They just redid the paint and everything. They're doing the underground garage, repainting everything. It is really, really a good place, and it's in a good rental area as well, and it's close to the military base. So, yeah, but I feel for you, because we were thinking about downsizing in southern Colorado, and it's like it just didn't make financial sense. There wasn't enough room, you know. They're really proud of their prices there. So, yeah, it was quite the interesting thing. So, so many people coming to Texas, running up the prices everywhere. Yeah, people from Washington, New York, California, all over California, Virginia, Connecticut, a lot of those states that are driving people away, they're going to Montana, they're going to Texas, they're going to Florida, they're going to these states that don't have such oppressive taxes, and they're finding out that they can buy way more. They get more for their money in regards to housing than they did in New York, Chicago, California, Washington State, blah blah blah, and Colorado. That was another one. People left California, come to Colorado, are like, holy crap, look what I could buy here. And then they go, or go to Texas, they can buy even more, or Florida. They're just like, holy crap, this is amazing. So I just hope they don't bring their ideas with them that led to the downfall of those states or those cities or municipalities and things like that into the places that they're moving to, because that's just a recipe for disaster, in my opinion. So. And I lived in California. I lived in Washington State. I lived in California, lived in Colorado, lived in New Mexico, Arizona. Where else did I live? Tennessee, lived there. Where else did I live? There was one other place. I can't remember. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see what happens. Very interesting indeed. All right, we've been on here for almost 3 hours. It's time to go. I am starving. I got to get some food, so we're going to go to the obligatory outro page, which is this right here. If you want to contact me, there's the email address, officialdbearlife@gmail.com. I always answer my emails. Give me a few days. Sometimes I miss some stuff. You can also buy me coffee. A bunch of people bought me coffee. It's cool if you want to do that. Boom, you can do that. Ned Venom says, keeping a low profile in Florida. We almost moved to Florida. We were seriously considering that. But then we ended up coming here to Korea. Then Venom says bye, and you as well. Hopefully everybody does well. GD3D Projects, thanks for coming by and stopping on the stream. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel so we can keep doing cool stuff. And I'll work on the 360 thing. That's going to be the next big thing. So with that being said, we'll see everybody. George says goodbye, later. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace. Good stuff indeed.